Hey everyone, Bailey here. So you're probably sick of being the person who's always like, ah, yes, this is a lovely, Cotes de Rona, is it? Or of just being the person who's so overwhelmed in the liquor store that you just pick the coolest bottle. Well, you've clicked on the right video because this is Bailey's infallible guide to making people think you know about wine. Let's get started. So the first step to knowing something about wine is knowing something about grapes. And that doesn't have to be a lot of things, that can literally just be one thing about grapes. Different grapes make different wines. It's obvious, right? But a Merlot is different from a Riesling in that it's made out of Merlot grapes, and a Riesling's made out of Riesling grapes. Most wine types are like that, and so once you know that, you can look on the bottle and find out what type of grape it's made of. And that's why some wines can have the same name and be red or white. They're either made with the skins or without the skins. That's all the differences. If you know how to read, you already know something about wine, and then you can start developing opinions on the different types of grapes and therefore the different types of wine. But that takes time and effort, and you want to be smarter than that one pretentious asshole friend at the party tonight. So, how do we beat it? So how we fake knowledge is by just knowing the vocabulary that people use to talk about wine. You've definitely heard people use these words before, at least on TV, when they're trying to seem all cool and shit, and you've been like, how on earth can you taste all this stuff in wine? Well, this is how. Side note, if in addition to any of these more general terms that I'm going to teach you, you smell or taste something specific in the wine, like a specific flavor, like maybe strawberries or the ocean, something like that, under no circumstances keep that to yourself. Identifying flavors like that will seriously up your wine cred by like 15–20% easy. So for this part, you need a glass of wine in your hands. So this is obviously the best part. So to start, take a sip of your wine. So now that you've tried it, you're going to try and pick some of these words to describe what it tastes like. So to start off with, let's ask, is it dry? Is it fruity? Now, some jerk is probably going to come up to you and be like, it's a liquid. How can a liquid be dry? You should start your put down with the traditional, well, actually, and then launch into an explanation how wines have tannins, and a lot of tannins can have a drying effect on your mouth. So when you're done drinking your wine, you'll feel like you need a glass of water. So if you feel like you need a drink after you just had a drink, it's a dry wine. Boom. Tannins are also the substance that's responsible for your awful hangover if you get drunk on wine. So don't do that. And fruity is really easy to tell. If it tastes like fruit or like juice, it's a fruity wine. And don't worry, because fruity only describes the taste. It has no effect whatsoever on the alcohol portion. Next up, you're going to talk about body, and your options here are light, medium, and full. Now, body can be very hard to words, especially if you're just beginning with this. But that's actually great for you because people aren't really going to know how to argue with it. So for your intents and purposes, body just means, does it taste heavy? Does it taste light? Or if it lingers a lot, that means it's got fuller body. So white wines are usually lighter, red wines can be fuller, but they can also be light, but so, you know, whichever one you go with, it's fine, I'll back you up. Then talk about sweetness. Sweetness is a result of sugar. Who could have guessed? Sweetness is caused by either added sugar after the process of fermentation, or sugar that existed before fermentation and the yeast just didn't get to it. Some people like really sweet wines, I don't, because they're really sweet and kind of like really sweet. So most wines are going to be like reasonably sweet or not sweet at all, but the wines that are going to be really sweet are going to be dessert wines like Moscato and cheap wines because they add sugar so that you don't taste how awful it is. It doesn't work. And then finally talk about acidity. Is it a high acidity or is it a low acidity? A low acidity is going to equal more or less how round it tastes, which is another one of those things that doesn't mean anything. But a high acidity, on the other hand, is going to feel more sharp or tart. So that should give you a clue as to whether yours is a high or low acidity. How does this look in practice? Allow me to demonstrate. It's a lovely Côte du Rhône 2013. It's quite round, it's got a good full body, rather fruity, definitely notes of fruit, blackberries, cherries, things like that. It's low in acid, low in tannins. It would go lovely with perhaps a beef stew, perhaps roasted lamb, or something piquant, perhaps with rosemary in it. Didn't that sound like I know about wine there? So that's how you talk the talk. Beyond that, I can just give a few pointers. My first pro tip would be wear red lipstick if you're going to be drinking red wine. It hides the certain red wine stains, and you just always look classier wearing red lipstick. My second tip would be own your own bottle opener. You can't be taken seriously when you're talking about wine if you don't own a bottle opener. And my final tip is if your wine bottle comes with a foil cap, if you cut it off instead of just going straight in for the cork, everyone will think you actually know shit about wine. I kid you not, this has happened in at least 3 different circumstances. That people assumed I must know what I'm doing because I just cut the little thing off. But if you actually want to really know stuff about wine, I would recommend checking out some other resources besides me. For instance, VinePair is a great website, and if you actually really like wine, I would definitely encourage you to either get a wine notebook so you can write down the wines you like and what you liked about them, and really start tasting wines, because once you start noticing notes and flavors and things like that, you'll pick up more as you try more. And if you're the kind of person who can never remember what wine you liked, either write it down in a notebook, this is the make all your friends think you're pretentious option, or there's an app for that, as you guessed. I use Vivino, and if you get the paid version, which I do not, they will actually give you wine lists based on what you've liked and rated before, so that's pretty cool. So now you're ready for that dinner party and that one pretentious friend of yours. Best of luck. Until next time, bye. Cheers.